What happens if Speeder gets negated? Because we want a backup plan. Speeder is our best card, but what happens if we get interacted with? And I'm going to show you the difference between knowing certain lines and being completely oblivious to what you're capable of doing. Although the first combos I'll show you, it's going to be very simplistic route, assuming you don't know the rest of the combos, but that's the point of this video, to show you the difference in which a sequence can be. Because these are some of the spells that we're going to be utilizing throughout our games. Which one to do first, which one do we start with, because you want to give as little to no insight to your opponent on your hand as they can expect. Maybe they won't even know what to expect because they don't know what your deck does, which is something that we tend to exploit. But for the most part, we're going to be looking at Synchro Fellows. If we start with this, what do we require? And is this going to be the optimal route? Because there's going to be different situations in which you do different things. Let me just show you. You start with Fellows, you're almost always going to be searching your Junk Synchron and your Full Speed Warrior because that's what gives you the one card combo. It's a very fragile one card combo, but nonetheless, it is still a way to add consistency and boost consistency within your deck. Keep that in mind. You then go ahead and summon your Junk, revive your Full Speed, and there's some other routes where you can go, they search Scrap, go for Scrap Warrior here, but it can be deceptive because it seems like you're plussing and it seems like you're getting more out of your additional summon, but the more and more I tried to make that line work, it always led you to a very weird synchro climb that didn't equate to anything. So let's just say, for example, we just full on, okay, if they have it, okay, go Speeder, right? Let's say they negate Speeder. What cards do you require to continue? And I'm going to show you a few variations. The first one is going to have to be with Stardust Synchron. Okay, so go tuning. We've banished our Synchro Fellows to reduce the Junk Speeder to allow us to have an additional summon of a Synchron monster. So then now you go ahead and summon and you get Illumination. If you're playing Arriving Light, I mean, you could possibly get away with it, but just adding more bricks, which is something that we're trying to avoid. And this is where we go here. So we go ahead and go for Stardust Dragon, the OG, not ASD. ASD will come out later. And for this line, you require Stardust Worm. It can be viewed as a brick, but based on how they've interacted with you, it's quite useful in this scenario. Because you can summon it off of Illumination and you revive itself. And then now you're here. And then now you're thinking to yourself, well, you have a 5, you have an 8 and a 4, that's a 12. Where can we go from here? First off, we go into our Excel Synchron. And of course, it'll vary depending on how your extra deck looks. This is just off of this extra deck that I'm utilizing and trying to incorporate the entirety of our extra deck to flow as it should. So we send, we dump, we reduce because we need it to be a level 4, right? We go into Crimson. Crimson will then add us our Synchro Rumble. We then go ahead and activate reviving our Stardust. And then we target the Stardust, summoning out our ASD. ASD will revive our Scrap. We use Illumination to increase the level of ASD, which will give us our the Spatter. The Spatter then revives a 4, and you can make it 12. In which case, if you wanted to, you could make another Crimson Dragon, assuming you played the OG Majestic. Then you can target this and then summon it on their turn. But if you're not, as I mentioned, the way your extra deck is structured, it has to have synergy within itself to be able to synchro climb with ease. Because if you have too much of a gap, like let's say 5 to 11, right, it can be kind of weird. So if you can incrementally get to the level, I think it'll be much more convenient. And you place that. So now you put the Speeder in the EMZ. You can put anything. If you can put something that can benefit off being destroyed, that'll be even better. This doesn't seem like much because it's just 2 for 2. You broke even. But this is an attempt of resolving Junk Speeder. And at the very least, you're not going minus, which is great based on card economy. It's okay. But what if you can choose to add a different Synchron? Now we go for our other Synchron, which is going to be Junk. So once again, we start with Synchro Fellows. Add Junk, discard the Full Speed, summon Junk, revive Full Speed, and go into Junk Speeder. Summon Speeder, it gets negated. Okay, pivot, tuning, mill, reduce, and of course, once again, depending on your extra deck, you can do different variations, but for the most part, this is what I'm utilizing. I'm trying to implement and trying to make sure that the entirety of the extra deck can be utilized depending on the given situation. So we go ahead and revive Full Speed. go into a 5, which is going to be XL, the next best level 5 for sure. We increase. This will give us access to a Crimson Dragon. Crimson Dragon will trigger. Revive our XL. We then increase, making it a level 9. We then go for Crimson, making a Trishula. We're breaking even now. This is beyond that, because now they interacted and we're ripping a card. Now, we go for Rev. Mill for Rev. Activate. Tribute. Search. Illumination. And this is where Stardust Worm becomes crucial for these lines. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do that. It's a way to salvage your sequence, even though it can be regarded as a brick. What allows you to be resilient. Revive, because you control a level 8 or higher dragon synchro. You go into Genesys. You go into your 12. You place. So this is what you can get with Junk Synchron. You did a little bit better because this time you hand rip for one with Trish and you ended on double interaction. So just based off interactions and card economy, you're ahead because you broke even and you took away a card from their hand. It makes this one a lot better because it's more than one interaction depending on how many attributes they have to use. Because you have water, you have dark, you have earth, you have wind. That's a lot of effect negation. Even through Speeder being negated, it's pretty good because I mean you still have 3 more cards to work with, whether they be non-engine or extension, which means you would have been able to produce an even bigger board. That's not bad. And here we go with the 3rd Synchron that gives you access to some sort of board presence. Because usually in the previous combos, we would discard the full speed and keep the junk to go for junk speeder route. But in this case, we're going to take a different approach where we go for tuning, search for our scrap, and we go through the scrap warrior route. The same 2-card variation, but a completely different sequence, which is the versatility of this deck. You add the chick, you reduce, get your additional summon, go ahead and revive the full speed, you go into a level 5. Remember, we're trying to avoid Speeder getting interacted with. That's the versatility through this sequence. You go ahead and dump your Stardust, reduce, you go for your Meta Marcher, you dump, tribute, special, right? So the benefit of this obscure and convoluted route is to make them interact at the wrong time because they're expecting Speeder to be the choke point, but you're not doing it. You're like halfway through a sequence and they're not seeing it. So they're probably going to be like, oh, maybe they're not doing it. Maybe they can't. I mean, you could, but they don't know that. But the point is to be deceptive. And that's the benefit of this line. So let's say they did end up holding on to the interaction and they do stop Speeder here, right? Your little tricks didn't work. Okay, they stopped you. Fine, fair enough. Go Speeder, negated, go SD, revive. You go for trail. SD is a tuner. It was made with Marcher. Get access to your Synchro Rumble, revive your dragon. You increase, you target, make Trish again. Trish hand rip. Fist of the Spatter. Revive your Stardust. Effect. Go into your Vengeance. It might seem apparent, but to players that are completely unaware of this deck, they'll be caught off guard because they need some sort of reference to try to interact at an optimal point. Because they're referencing Speeder. They're, oh, okay, I know exactly where to hit. Just hit the Speeder and it should be fine. But we're doing it in a way where it's very deceptive. It's very like, okay, do you want to stop this here? You want to stop there, right? And little do they know is that that's not really significant to us. We just want to make sure that this resolves. That's the reason for this line. To prompt responses at the wrong time. And once again, you hand ripped and you still ended on 2 interactions. You invested 2 cards for 2 cards and reducing 1, considering that they stopped our best attempt at completely winning the game with resolving Speeder. Pretty crazy. Now that you've seen what you could do if Speeder gets negated, those are quite simplistic lines. They're very straightforward, know your pivot, but you can take it even further. And that's what I want to differentiate. What happens if you know and you don't know? Because that can make the biggest difference in your tournament experience. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. We have the exact same cards, okay, the exact same ones. But because you can do something completely different and you get to choose what route to take, all this insight will benefit you in the long run. Okay, so now we go for the similar thing. We go for scrap. Get for Sonic Chick. Because at any given point, if they're trying to stop you at any given point, right, whether they ash you, whether they imperm this, right, you already have access to your Synchron Fellows Additional Summon, then you're good. So it makes it really obscure. Like, where do they interact? You're just getting a bunch of resources, but they're not sure if it's going to amount to anything. But you're trying to get to a point where it's too late. By the time they realize, oh, I should have done it on that. Okay. So then you dump, you special. You go into your SD line. SD revives. You set up your Marcher. At which point you get to your XL. XL is another way you can access your Synchrons. Revive special. Right? And this is where the worm comes into play as well. And then now you just go effect. SD. Resolve. Right? Very different lines. Very different. But this is what you have to do. You have to study and you have to be able to learn all these lines. That's the point of the video. To make it that much easier. Because these decks can be a bit complex in how you sequence them. Because the options are so vast. There's just so many options you can do. Your extra can be different. It just so many different routes. It can be overwhelming. Summon your SMSD. Right? Summon back your Stardust. Like right here, I'm going to show you different end boards. But right here, you can end on either whether it be Crystal Wing, whether it be Omega, whether it's Herald. It can vary. But the primary ones you're going to do, it's going to be Gen X 0. And your boss monster will differ depending if you're playing the Blazar or the Vengeful, right? But for now, we're just doing this round. We're going to go ahead and decrease and then go for the Omega because we want to be able to return our Assault Synchron on their turn. The same card variation, but this is slightly different. Just a little bit, yeah? Just a little bit. Compared to just 2 and the Trish. The other route was just Vengeance, the Spatter, and Trish. I mean, the Spatter's live because you banished with Trish. So you have a Monster Negate and you have a spot removal. But if you can do a different route, why wouldn't you? And that's the obscurity of these type of decks, where it can be deceptive. One moment, you might play against someone that is playing the exact same deck, but they only know the first 3, and they don't know these next ones. Just be mindful of that. This is going to be the same combo, but a different end board. And I feel like this one might be better because of the whole setup. And the floodgate, well, the mini floodgate that Herald can provide, right? Everything from hand or deck that tends to the graveyard is banished instead, which can be quite problematic for a lot of decks. And being able to protect the Herald is even better, because usually the way they deal with an Omni like that, they just go battle phase and run it over. But because you have Blazar and you have Vengeance to protect the Herald, they can't just easily go battle phase. And then it plays around Droplet as well, because they need to send a monster from field. And if they can't send from field, then you could just negate with Blazar, right? Which is huge. So the same combo. This is going to be the exact same, except the difference is going to be towards the end and how you end on your boss monster. Asti. And I'm just doing this to point out that there's differences, there's levels to understanding the bare minimum, and then when you get a bit more complex into the other obscure combos, which makes a difference, right? And I'm just hoping that you guys grasp the idea of these type of decks, of being able to exploit the fact that there is a difference from someone at a lower caliber level to someone that is a bit more advanced, right? Because that makes a difference. That makes the biggest difference, right? So then now we go for Blazar. And this is where I was mentioning that you can do anything, which is you can do the Herald at the end, right? Because the Rumble provides that. And look at this little guy. This little guy is protected. He's in the middle of all these beasts. That's crazy. Look, you have this guy that can pop the speeder to protect this guy from attack in battle phase. And then you have Blazar itself to end the battle phase, which is crazy. Like, it's protected. You don't have to waste your Herald early on, which is something that we generally do because, oh, they'll just go battle phase. So I just have to negate the first thing. And then you have, of course, 0. How many? You have Earth, Wind, Dark. That's a lot. For one card to gain that many attributes is huge. Remember, these are the exact same cards that we use from the very basic combos to the more complex combos. And it'll vary depending on how you choose to progress. Okay? So now, we get our junk. We go for Assault Synchron. Okay? This way, we have an Omni to protect our speeder. Reduce the Herald, summon junk, and now we have speeder. So that puts them on double hand trap. They need double hand trap to stop you, otherwise this speeder is resolved. Get your Synchrons on board. We're not playing wheel, okay? We're not playing wheel. Go for SD. SD will revive. You go for Illumination, summon at your trail. Go for Omega. Synchro away the Omega. Go for 0. Tribute. Special the trail effect. Go for your Crimson. And all these cards like Trail, Rumble, these are all engine requirements to allow you to be resilient. Otherwise, you're compromising exactly that. You'll boost consistency because you won't see those engine requirements, but your resiliency just won't be there. You'll lose to way more interactions early on compared to these lines. Go to Spatter, Mega recycle the junk because we have more fellows in deck. Revive. You go into your Omega. Revive. And then finally, you go into your Vengeance. Place a speeder, same card variation, completely different combo. And because this guy's here, Blazar's not there to protect the Herald, but nonetheless, this can protect from the battle phase. Just pop this and the monster they control. The amount of variations that you have with those two cards is something that you should know. And that's what these videos are for. Help you understand majority of these combos before the structure is released. And finally, here's the combo that I've showed you in the past where you don't even go for speeder. As I mentioned earlier, most players will need to find some sort of reference point or some sort of insight that they remember or they can recall of how to play against this deck. And the initial thought will be speeder. But if they're putting every single thing into that play of interacting with speeder, then this is bad news for them because this is a speederless line. You're not even going to make speeder. So you're still going to end on the same board without speeder, which is the funny thing about this. But anyways, here we go. This is going to be a really convoluted line where you're exploiting the fact that they're waiting on speeder, right? So if they think, oh, I don't want to Ash here, I don't want to imprint this, all I have to do is just stop speeder, right? And you're exploiting that. You're taking advantage of that. Summon, revive your full speed. Go for your Assault. Go for SD. Revive. Go for your Meta Marcher. Meta Marcher revives. This is another way to get access to your Synchron, right? Like the ones that can be summoned from grave or the ones that have some utility in the graveyard. This is the other way to do it. Because you can still do cost. It just won't change the level. Summon your trail. You increase. That was a very niche thing that it took me a while to figure out. I was like, oh yeah, I can do that, yeah. Effect. Go into our Crimson Dragon. effective trail, revive trail, add rumble, dispatch a revive. Right? Like, they're expecting speeder, and we never win speeder, which is hilarious. I think I find myself doing this combo a lot because they know, oh, I'll just wait for speeder. Yeah. Go for SMSD. And that's your speederless route. And the thing about it is, even if they do interact with you early on, then you can pivot into speeder. That's the whole point. But yeah, that's pretty insane. All right, here's the list. So as I mentioned, we were just going over the pivot option because this can be any of the Synchron. And I was like, okay, if I have Synchro fellows and tuning, which one do I want to add depending if I just go speeder? I went down the list. I was like, okay, look, what does Stardust give? What does Junk give me? What does Rev give me? What does Assault give me? And these one didn't really help you with anything. That's why you didn't see a combo with them. So that's why the best ones to search and the first one to help you pivot is going to have to be Stardust Synchron and Junk Synchron. And the first half, I showed you the simplistic route where you don't necessarily need to recall too much. It's very simplistic, very straightforward. And then you moved on to the more complex side because there will be differences. Some players want to play the deck and not really invest too much into it, but enough to be sufficient to maybe get there. But of course, if you want to dive deeper and explore the deck even further, then that's where it gets a bit more complex, where I showed you like the differences. And there will be that. There'll be two different pilots. One a bit more casual, but wants to play it. The other is like, okay, I'm trying to make the most out of it. This is what I need to do. I need to know these combos. I need to know these lines. And that's where you'll benefit the most, because comparing the first combos to the second part of the video, the second part is just far better, you know? If you are considering these engine requirements as bricks, you can remove them, but as I mentioned, you won't be able to produce anything close to what I just showed you. And that's the compromise that you have to come to terms with. You'll be more consistent by removing these and playing more non-engine. You'll be interactive and simple for the game state. But if you're starting, this is not meant to be a grindy deck. It's basically see your hand, is it resilient enough, and can I push past these interactions? Because if I don't, whatever I'm producing here is gonna have to hold and maintain the tempo of the rest of this game, because you can't go like, oh, top deck this. Very rarely will you be able to have a second push. So that's why you need to be resilient within your first hand. Being able to pivot is what I keep pointing out. You need to be able to have a way to salvage the resources that you've invested. These cards do that for you. Whether we keep the deck list like this, I'm not too sure. As you see, we're still playing righty, because initially I thought, okay, Stardust is a one-card combo. Even though it is, it's a very fragile one-card combo. It loses to almost every hand trap, especially Nib, compared to these ones. So I wanted to increase the quality of our starters. So that's why you have 3 full speed and 3 righty driver, because if this resolves, you're going to be in a much better position the further the sequence goes. The non-engine hand traps, it'll vary. Whether we play 40 card builds, 50 card builds, 60 card builds, we're not too sure. We have to wait and see what the format looks like, especially with the structure and having it, you know, because it'll vary, right? Because theory is one thing and then practicality is just completely different. Something you thought would work doesn't work, and something that you thought didn't work does work. It's just so weird. That's just Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay, but yeah, so going to the extra deck, it'll vary. You can change this. You can swap out whether it be the Majestic and the Jura, and you can put in the Cosmic and Crystal Wing. It'll vary. And then of course there was other things I was considering as well, but I just started to build these sequences off of, okay, speeder be negated. What do I do? Because obviously this is just a generalized example, but that's gonna be it. I'll continue to get more content out for you guys on this deck because I've been caught up with Genesys. I've just been really enjoying Genesys. It's a slower tempo. It's not really like advanced where it's like just so fast paced in a sense where you just don't get to play sometimes. Whereas with Genesys, it's a bit more technical. There are still some obnoxious things to deal with. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but I'm saying it's less frequent, and you actually get to play. You can pick any deck and try to make it viable. It's just so vast that it can be overwhelming. But leading up to the structures released, I'm going to be trying to get more duels or more OCG live duels to commentate for you guys, just to prepare and just get us used to the deck itself and not be, you know, just put us on the right track. Anyways, that's gonna be it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching.